So with that, we are going to hand it over to Maggie and Rachel to talk about where they're at with the UFP.
And if
Hi,
I may,
everyone.
sorry, could I give a quick introduction to these two wonderful presenters?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to really thank them for joining us today and being so thoughtful over the past couple of months and thinking about this urban forest plan. And I wanted to give a shout out to Rachel, a little story. And I don't know if you remember this, Rachel, but I'm going to share it. Speak for the Trees was founded around 2018. And one day I checked my mailbox, my real physical mailbox, right? Not email. And I had a letter from someone in Kentucky. And I thought, Kentucky, what's this about? And it was a real letter from a real person, Rachel and her partners over there, welcoming our organization into the landscape of urban forestry. And it was really touching. And it really showed, I think, Rachel, how you know how to connect to people. And we met at a partners conference. So really, when I saw your name as on the list, really grateful for you. And I know you bring a lot of expertise in this. So that's my introduction for Rachel. And Maggie, I was looking at your bio, and you and I started this world of urban forestry around the same time. You've really become a leader here in Boston, and so appreciative of you lending your voice at other events we've held, including our Teen Urban Tree Corps. And looking forward to the partnership and the leadership that you're going to bring on this. And I know, you know, you work closely with Liza and with other staff, but I know this is really something that you'll be managing, and couldn't be more pleased to have you join us here today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you both.
Thank you, David. That was very generous of you. I wanted to say hi, everyone. Great to see you. Many faces I recognize and many more I'm sure I will get to meet as we go forward. I wanted to say, sorry it took us a little while to make our way to you, but we really appreciate all the work that you do and look forward to working with you on the urban forest plan. And we know that there is longstanding interest in finding ways to work with the city, and we think that the urban forest plan really provides some space and resources to find a way to do this. And I wanted to provide some context to the urban forest plan. The urban forest plan is happening under the canopy of healthy places. So I got to work on my puns, but healthy places is a way to bucket community engagement for 3 unique but very related and overlapping initiatives that's going on in the city. Those initiatives are the Urban Forest Plan, the Heat Resilience Study led by Zoe Davis at Environment, and then the Open Space and Recreation Plan, which is like this just 7-year comprehensive look at everything open space in the city. And so we're doing that in order to try to increase internal collaboration and reduce the burden on constituents and stakeholders. And so I wanted to just share that link to Healthy Places. You can sign up for a newsletter there. And so I really encourage you to check that out, because I'm sure many of you are also interested in learning more about heat work in the city. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Rachel to introduce herself some more and speak about the project.
Great, thank you. I am really excited to get started with you guys, and thanks, David, for what you said. This is the work that I love to do. And I know it's kind of strange, like, what is someone from Kentucky doing in this? And I'm actually in the Cincinnati area. For those of you that don't know, the Cincinnati airport is actually in Kentucky. So it's sort of a weird, most people are like, what is that? What are you doing? But I am an arborist, certified arborist, and an urban planner. I've been doing urban forest master planning, all sorts of strategic planning for groups, first for Davie Resource Group, and now for Urban Canopy Works. It's almost a decade that I've been doing this. My partner, Jenny Gulick, is at Urban Canopy Works. She also was at Davie. She and I both left Davie and started Urban Canopy Works. She is an expert in policy, regulations, code, and operations. She actually served as the city forester for the city of Cincinnati for 15 to 20 years, and then was a senior consultant at Davie doing work with municipalities and all sorts of operation code policy, that kind of thing. And so she and I have worked with cities across the country, mostly east of the Mississippi. But we are really excited to work with you. And I think this is just going to be really good. Our project partner is Stoss. They are technically the lead with the city, but we're both doing kind of equal work. They are coordinating most of the engagement work, which we'll talk about in a minute, but participating in everything. David Schoen, which is kind of odd that it's David and David. We had a call and it was a little hard to differentiate that. With Stoss is going to be, he's working on engagement planning right now. Amy Whitesides is a senior person at Stoss. She's kind of involved in everything. And then Sue is more of a logistics person. And then we have other partners that we're going to be working with throughout the project. So Planet Geo is the one that's doing the tree inventory work that's happening right now. And we will give an update on that. Then we have Nina Estrella Luna. She is an expert in equity and inclusion. She is going to be advising throughout the project. And then we have American Forest. I know Eric, I see Eric on here. We actually haven't met before, Eric, but with American Forest, we're going to be working with them throughout the project. Jenny especially is working with Larry Wiseman and American Forest throughout all of the policy code, all of that stuff. They're going to be working together. And then we've got Molly, Henry, and Sarah Anderson to get involved in the equity and possibly workforce development, that kind of thing. And then we have niche engineering, I'm not sure how to actually say it. They are sort of in the wings if we need to do some engineering, some specifications on any of the work that comes up. So that's the team. And I just wanted to give you an update on the project. I know you guys have been kind of eager to see where are we with this? What are we doing? So we just got under contract a couple weeks ago. I know the press came out and said, hey, we're doing this. You know, that was a while ago, but it takes a while for contracts and subcontracts. And so we really are just getting started. But I wanted to talk to you about how this is going to work. And I would have loved to have a PowerPoint to show you dates and structures and all that stuff, but we really are putting that together right now. So we don't have a ton to share just yet. But this is a community-driven plan. And I wanted to reassure you that you all will be involved in this. And I think it's great that you guys have organized and put together this buff group. That's just really, really important to do and not something a lot of cities have done. So I'm excited about that. And, you know, if it wasn't a community-driven plan, it would just be a city operations plan, a daily management plan for staff. And that's not what this is. And the city is just one player amongst all of you and many others that are impacting and involved in the urban forest. So I am looking forward to working with all of you. We have also been tasked to ensure that this is done equitably and to pay special attention to marginalized communities and those that have not been at the table in the past. So that is really what Nina's role is throughout this project. She is constantly pulling us back saying, hey, what about these groups? What about, like, you know, she's through this, she's going to advise throughout the project and make sure that we are sticking to that, what we've committed to there. Again, I wish I had some big calendar to show you and all of this stuff, but like I said, we're working on it. But the crux of this is we are going to self-assess the sustainability of Boston's urban forest. And we look at about 30 indicators of a sustainable urban forest. There's one group of 8 or 10 indicators that are about the trees themselves. So that's diversity, tree canopy, condition, all of that stuff about the actual trees. And then we are also going to look at the players, the human side of things. We need to go beyond just the tree data and look at who's active and who isn't active and who's at the table and is not, et cetera, all of that. And then the third category of indicators of a sustainable urban forest is the management approach. So not just what the trees are and who's involved, but how we're taking care and stewarding this asset. So we are going to have 3 workshops, and they are sequential workshops, and they're going to be first one's going to be about the trees, second one, the players, third one, the management approach. And that is, our thought was that is going to be attended by the Community Advisory Board, which I'll talk to you about in a second. and city staff. And, we imagine that's going to be actually pretty big. And I really, really wish we could do this in person. And I'm still a little hopeful. I don't know. Who knows? But we have to assume that it's going to be virtual at this point. But the workshops are kind of structured like this. And I've done this in many different communities, and it really is a good process. We do a 15-minute presentation in the beginning on whatever the topic has to be for that day. And then we go into 2 hours of discussion with all of you, and we start hashing out what are all the challenges, what are all the problems, the list of questions that you guys submitted before this meeting, that we will go over all of that stuff in those workshops. That's really a time to download everything that you want to get out on the table. It's for us to hear, but also for you all to hear each other. A lot of times in communities, this is the first time people are in the same room, if we want to call it that these days, to talk about these issues. So it really is, it's city staff and organizations and utilities and large landholders or green industry people or everything. So everyone's together talking about it. So that's really the crux. And it's not about coming to consensus, but it's more downloading all of these issues and making sure they're out on the table. So that's a big part of that. We do need to have the inventory done in order to start that, because we want that data, and the inventory is probably going to be done in mid-June. So the chances are these workshops are going to be this summer, I imagine shortly after that. So we have the Community Advisory Board, which I imagine many of you we're going to have a form to, express your interest in joining kind of thing that we hope to have out in the next couple weeks. I would say end of April, early May. And we're going to send it to your group directly. And we'll also put it out on the website. And so as soon as we have it, you guys will get it directly. And I know, David, you have a list of people who have expressed interest in it. So I just wanted to assure you that it will be to you as soon as we get it together. Let's see what else I wanted to tell you. Within that Community Advisory Board, and we know that's probably going to be a big group, 100, 150 people, because there are so many people that are interested. I don't know that, I've done it with that big of a group, and we will get into small subgroups and have discussions and report back. So everyone will still get to have a say, even though it's a large group. There is going to be some sort of equity-based subgroup in there that we are going to give them a little bit of an extra voice, just because they have been marginalized in the past, and Nina's going to be running that. We also have an interdepartmental working group that's going to participate in the workshop as well. So there will be city staff there as well. And then we will get them together afterwards and actually start hashing out some of the issues that we've heard from you all in the workshops, and really start not just say, hey, we should do this, but hey, we need to do this. And what are the challenges internally that we are running into? And so Jenny with Urban Canopy Works and Larry with American Forest are really going to be running that. Probably do an intro meeting with them. They'll participate in the workshops, and then we'll be doing working group meetings with them after that. And the Community Advisory Board, we will meet again after those workshops, but that's really the first bulk of the work that we're going to be doing. And we're still figuring that out at this point. So trying to think some of the work that Jenny and Larry will be doing, they're going to be doing an operations review. So that's budget, staff, everything for city internally, what they need to do. Do they have enough resources? How are they doing it? That kind of thing. They're looking at code and policy. I know that's going to come up in those workshops, and that's good. That's what it always does. And so we're going to be, she's going to be looking at that. We also will have tree inventory data from the Planet Geo folks. And then we are using the canopy analysis data that you guys have from 2014 and then 2019. So we'll be using that and potentially running some additional analysis depending on what, we're going to kind of see how that goes. There will be other options for people to get engaged in the public beyond the Community Advisory Board. We are going to, if COVID wasn't happening, we'd probably do some open houses and some neighborhood meetings. And again, David with Stas working on setting that up right now, or planning it out. And a lot of that, we realize when we're in those workshops, there's going to be, hey, this group is not at the table and they should be. So that's going to determine those workshops. We're going to kind of be a little bit nimble and change as we need to based on what we hear from all of you in those workshops. So trying to think of what else. I just wanted to tell you, I did listen to your January meeting where Andrew, I can't say his last name, yes, did the presentation on the Boston Urban Forest Coalition, and that was really interesting. So I'm really appreciative that was recorded and I can listen to it. We are going to be putting together updates. There's an email newsletter, like Maggie said, that's on the Healthy Places website. We will be updating you all. This is part of Davi with Stas's work, is what is our communications plan, but we do know that we are going to want to and will communicate with you on a regular basis. I just don't know what that looks like quite yet. Maggie, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I would just say that if you have questions in the interim, you're more than welcome to email or call me. And I think Natalie and David, you have my info, so feel free to share that out. I'm always a fan of phone calls too. Who wants more emails? But I'm happy to respond to emails too. But you're welcome to reach out, and I'll do my best to respond in a timely manner. Yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate that. I think that's it. I wanted to provide one update, actually. Rachel, I forgot to mention this too. For Canopy Assessment data, I know that that's been a lot of interest to people. We're reaching the finish line, making sure that that's going to be available to the public for download and viewing before the project advances too much, so that everyone can come along with us as we're doing the work. So that will be available to you in, if not by the end of this month, then early next month.
So I would just leave it open to you guys if you have questions. I saw that there was a lot of questions that you all had about development and ordinance and specifics. And I would say a lot of this we're going to work on at those workshops. But we're certainly happy to answer any questions that you guys have. So Natalie or David, if you want to.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna defer to Natalie here on, picking out some of those questions. And Pat, I see your hand. We're gonna go first with the questions that were submitted, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So we'll put you first in the queue, Pat.
Yeah, I'll just ask a few questions that were submitted. So one was, will the plan address or try to reduce the number of trees lost to development, and how will that be prioritized?
I don't know, Maggie, if you want.
Yeah. Yes, developing a way to protect and grow the canopy of existing trees is a huge part of the plan, because planting is, of course, important, as we all know, but tree loss happens in an instant, and growing canopy requires love and care over the long term. So according to the 5-year canopy change assessment, Boston lost more canopy on residential property than any other land use type, and we don't currently have a way to regulate that, as you all know. And on the other hand, let's give it up though for public spaces and streets, which have provided the bulk of canopy gain. And so because because of the strong need to regulate other types of removals, we will be developing a draft tree protection ordinance as part of this planning process.
Yeah, another question, and I know, it may be worked on as these meetings continue with the community advisory board and all of that, but at least as of right now, how will this plan, with your thinking at the moment, be implemented in marginalized communities first? And what is the thinking with the environmental justice component?
Yeah, and I would just start, and Rachel, feel free to jump in, but that's a really good question. And I think the first thing we have to figure out is the game plan about, what are the issues with urban forests and where do we want to be? And to make sure that that framing is in place. We have that community advisory board, which will really be shaping the process and our broader stakeholder engagement. So, as part of that kind of core equity group, that's really a way to protect those voices that can sometimes be drowned out by other voices that are typically heard. So I would say that right now for implementation, we're not sure yet because we first have to develop the game plan, but that game plan will be developed in a way that is cooperative.
And that is Nina's role. And I would say she is a fierce advocate for those groups. So even if somebody wanted to like kind of skim over that, I can tell you Nina will not let that happen. So she's a great member of the team. And how it will be implemented depends on what those folks need. And so the first thing to do is have them at the table and make sure they have a voice and listen first, and then move to implementation.
And then another one would be, what is the time frame or the method for joining the community advisory board or otherwise getting involved, and what types of people do you see as being on that?
Where did Maggie just, oh, there you are. Oh, the thing moved, sorry. We anticipate it would be end of April, early May. It's part of the, kind of planning thing to get that sign up structure together. What was the other part of that question? I'm sorry,
What is the process to being involved on the community advisory board or otherwise getting involved?
Yeah, it's about filling out a form. It's just kind of an expression of interest, kind of just giving us your information. And so we need to make sure that that community advisory board includes folks like you. But there are many players in the urban forest. There's neighborhood groups, there's city is a player, there's like more regional players, there are large landholders, there are green industry, developers, so we have a kind of a structure that we're gonna say, hey, whoever wants to do it, get involved, fill out this form, and we're gonna round it out with, hey, we don't have anyone from the whatever community it is that's not represented, or a group that's not represented. Plus, we will be especially looking for input and participation from those marginalized communities as well.
And I would say that for the otherwise engaged piece, definitely sign up for the Healthy Places newsletter. And, because we will be communicating with Buff, we'll be sure to alert you to different opportunities. But the nice thing about Healthy Places is that we'll be posting opportunities for all 3 projects to get involved there. And we're talking, the 3, I'm involved with 2 of the projects, but they'll all be working together. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunity to just inform this comprehensive planning process overall too.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make a plug for Zoe. She is fantastic too. If you haven't met her yet, she is such a team player. And we had a chance to work with her a year ago when she was over at the Mystic River Watershed Association. And now so pleased to have her. I didn't realize she was leading that. So that's great, Maggie. Natalie, any questions before we open it up?
I think we can open it up now. Yeah. So
Pat, you had your hand up first. And then Tyler put a question in the chat window.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand. This is a plan for the city of Boston, correct? It's not a regional plan. So why is it not city of Boston residents who are going to be primarily taking the lead, primarily on the advisory committee? People from each neighborhood of Boston, and there are many. We should be the ones on the advisory committee doing the planning. There's many, many, many neighborhood associations. And those of us along the Fairmount train line, which is Hyde Park, Dorchester, Mattapan. In Hyde Park alone, we have probably close to a dozen neighborhood associations, 4 or 5 that are primarily led by people of color, with the majority of membership people of color. I don't see any of them in this group, and it's disturbing to me. And I want to make sure that our communities are well represented in this process. because we have been working for a long time to do preservation of open space and to address, we have a whole climate change initiative that is looking at tree canopy, protecting tree canopy. And I guess I'm not clear on how this whole thing is unfolding without having all those groups already at the table. And how are you going to ensure that the nonprofits in our communities and the neighborhood associations in our communities do have a seat at the table on the advisory committee? Because we're already doing the work and we're already tearing out our hair, because on the one hand, the city is saying, oh, we need an urban forest plan and more tree canopy. And on the other hand, all we see is developers clear cutting woodland. So, I'm very concerned about how this process is going to unfold and what the representation is going to be.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't make it more clear. The neighborhood groups like that are, yes, a big part of the community advisory board. That's, yeah, representation from each neighborhood is very important. And, so it's open to anyone who wants to join. And I think from your network too, when we put this out to you, we hope that you put that expression of interest form, or I don't even know what we're calling it yet, out to those groups and say, hey, you should really participate in this and join. And I think, the role that Nina is going to play is, hey, okay, we've got all these applications in, we don't have anything from this community. And we know they have been marginalized or not represented in past work, or they're not a member of this group, or whatever it happens to be. And so I imagine we're going to try and find the right person, like through you guys or through other networks, and make sure that it is represented. Yeah, absolutely.
So you'll be sending out a form that we can send around.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll all get the form. And yeah.
End of April, early May is when we anticipate having that ready to go.
And how can I reach Nina?
I don't have her contact. I can provide it to David. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to talk to her directly.
Okay. I can provide it to David and he can send it out.
Okay.
Yeah, and I hear you on the hair pulling. And I think that's why this project is exciting, because urban forest really requires all hands on deck, and the city has to find ways to support all the good work that people are doing, and do that in a organized way that's responsive to what people really are doing and wanting. So I hear you.
And Pat, I just want to also acknowledge that this group is not representative. I think you made that in your comment. This, for many reasons, one of them being that we're on Zoom in the middle of a Friday, and people are working, and it's not necessarily accessible. That's something we struggle with as a coalition, of trying to get the right people here, or a representative collection of people here. And I hope that's something that also will be discussed in future meetings with the community advisory group, is how do we devise opportunities that are accessible, in terms of technology, in terms of language, in terms of timing, that make sure that all voices are heard. And I think that's critical too.
And we are ensuring, I was just taking a look at the chat while you were, we are going to make sure that those the form is in multiple languages. And I don't know if Maggie, you want to speak to that, but that's important.
Yeah, the last few years have been really exciting in city work, because we have the language and communications access, and the budget is only growing for that. So that really allows us to not only provide translation services, but also interpretation too. So if we have a community advisory board member whose language is something other than English, we can accommodate that. So we are very excited about improved LCA access. And I would also like to say that there's other offices, like Office of Immigrant Advancement and such, that we're talking to make sure that we're really understanding how to reach people, even in just distributing our emails and forms in ways that people actually get them. And then also how to hear people better, how to open up our ears.
So I'm going to run through a few questions in the chat, and then Sarah seems like maybe she left her desk. So Tyler asked a question about water table management, because Boston is, a lot of it is on a landfill. How might we utilize soil cells to manage stormwater and promote canopy growth? It's a little bit of a technical question.
I love groundwater discussions. I've done a lot of research about that in the past, so thank you. I would say for technical, yeah, like we're just starting the plan, so we haven't talked about the technical aspects about tree management and interesting things like soil cells and what have you, but we're definitely going to get there. Promise you.
I would, you know, that will be something that we bring up at those workshops and say, hey, this is something we really need to be thinking about and get it out there as a topic we need to be considering. Yeah.
Yvonne asks, who in city government will oversee this group? Yvonne, do you mean by group, do you mean the community advisory group?
No, I mean, who will oversee this initiative, the urban forest,
Okay.
blah, blah, blah. Who's your boss? That's what I want to know. Who's going to be your boss?
So I'll be the project manager, but I'm working really closely with Liza Meyer, whom many of you are probably familiar with. She's our chief landscape architect. So, but really we want to make it clear that while Boston Parks and Recreation Department put out the RFP, and you know, I'm from the Parks Department, no one department controls trees, and that's why it's really important that we all get on board and have a clear vision. So I'll technically be the project manager, point contact for the project within the city. So, yeah.
And Ryan, do you want to mention Ryan Woods? Is it Woods?
Yeah, our commissioner, Ryan Woods, is also very open and receptive to any conversations you'd like to have with him, and of course, working closely with him as well.
And then before I turn to Sarah or Erica, Allison asked the question, the person from Stas, his name is Davi Schoen. He pronounces his name similar to me, but without the D at the end. Although apparently in Brazil, when you put a D at the end, it's not pronounced either. So it's Davi with or without a D. Often, you know, like when you go into a store, your name is Hannah. They say, is that with an H or without an H? I guess in Brazil, you go in and you say, my name is Davi. They say, is that with a D or without a D? Who would have known? Anyways, Sarah Freeman, are you on still? I don't see you. You had your hand up. So Erica, why don't we turn to you?
Great, yeah, I've made it back inside. I'm so excited about this plan, and thank you for putting this conversation together. I'm from the Emerald Necklace Conservancy, so we operate on about 1,000 acres in Boston. I'm the field operations person, so directly the tree contracts and everything, and we have a management plan from 2015. So my question is really just about how to capitalize on investments that have already been made and how this plan will integrate or use previous plans, and also like stressing the equity conversation. So essentially a couple of conversations, like how will this work with plans and operations that are happening in Boston now, and also will it reference plans in other places like Philadelphia, which is doing a great job on both fronts. If you could speak a little to that, I would be really happy, but I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I love doing this work. We part of the work of that Jenny and Larry will be doing, but all of us as well as part of this looking at policy and code is also looking at existing plans in place. And I'm excited to hear that you have this management plan, and I would love to see that. If that's, I don't know if that's just on your website that I could look at it, but that's all of that.
I can absolutely send it over to you guys and would be thrilled to align over that type of thing.
Yeah, and that's also why we're making sure healthy places, we're doing the healthy places thing. So it's the forest, heat, and open space, that we're going to work with, make sure we're aware of all of these initiatives going on in the city, and that we're not contradicting each other, because even as a resident in my own city, I know how frustrating that can be. You know, one of the things that Jenny and I bring to the project is that we've worked with, I've done master plans in Cleveland, Tallahassee, Charlotte, you know, and part of that work is doing peer city research for other cities, and we are doing that as well here. We are going to do some peer city research after the workshops once we hear, hey, these are the things that we're really struggling with here and that we're more clear on. So we're going to choose some peer cities that are doing it well, whatever it happens to be. So we will definitely be doing that. And I actually used to work in Philadelphia when I was at Davie. I ran the tree planting contracts for them. And so I know Erica and folks really well in Philly, and I love what they're doing. And so, yeah, we certainly, that is, I think, one thing we bring is just, we have exposure to a lot of what all these cities are doing. So we will definitely incorporate that. And so does American Forest, a lot. So that's the other benefit of having American Forest on the team, is they have all that insight as well.
Thank you.
And I see also here Jesse Scott from U.S. Forest Service is on the call, as is, I think, Molly from the DCR. So a lot of people locally and across the country are interested in this. It's great to have so many people show up. Natalie, any questions here in the chat window that?
I was going to say too, while you're looking at the, you know, that's the reason why the community advisory board is going to have to be so big, because there are so many people active and that need to be represented in these marginalized communities. And so it can't be a 20-person, 30-person community advisory board. That's just not representative of the community. So it's going to be a big group because it needs to be. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, there's a couple questions here in the chat. One is from Allison. If you guys can talk about what Planet Geo is doing now and how the inventory is being recorded, and then how it will be shared.
Yeah, they are about halfway through, and they are out in the field putting the information on a GIS-based system called Tree Plotter. That's Planet Geo's system. And so we are just starting to get some information in. I don't know, Maggie, do you want to? I was going to pull up some data to share.
Yeah, let's see. They're taking, so we have the Canopy Assessment, right? That looks at the canopy from above, each LiDAR, provides a lot of information like coverage and even height, which you'll see when that data is released. But then we have the street tree inventory, and it's just street trees, which gives us a level of detail that the Canopy Assessment can't provide. And it is operationally helpful to the tree division. And so they'll look at, you know, diameter, pit conditions, and things like that. And so it's pretty exciting stuff, and even also empty pits. So we know if there's like low-hanging fruit areas to add canopy. Yeah, that's in the process of being gathered. And so we're not prepared yet to share it, but we will definitely.
Yeah, and that's part of the kind of getting organized and getting everything together and getting a communications plan, is sharing all of this as it comes together. And it's just, we're just starting to get some information in. So we
Maggie,
know.
Maggie, I'd be really interested, as you know, we've taken data on about 10,000 sites throughout the city, and I'm really curious sort of to see how accurate our data is and where the overlap is and opportunities are, because I think I wonder how a citizen science project compares with professional data collection. But that's just a selfish request.
I think that you know, we have equity in the sense that we want to make sure we hear everyone, but we also have data equity, right? And I'm really interested in exploring that more. Yeah,
fantastic.
And I think in cities, the more data you can share with giving people access to Canopy, you know, so they can look at their own neighborhoods and what street trees do we have, and you know, that David's been working on and other cities have done, like New York City and DC, where you can log in, hey, I watered my tree today, even though it's a street tree kind of thing. So these are all the things that need to come up at the workshops, and we can all have a group discussion about it. Yeah, so it's all good information.
Yep. Okay. So there's one last question in the chat, and then we'll do Yvonne and John and wrap up. So one question is there discussion involving youth in some aspects of this work?
This is one thing that David with Stoss is working on. And yes, I believe there is. And we have Sarah with American Forest. There may be workforce development work that comes in as we go through this. What else was I going to share with you guys? And Maggie, do you have something you want to add?
Well, I'll just make a plug for our Teen Urban Tree Corps program that is going to be going to have some workforce development in it. It's a 6-week summer program. Teens will get paid through either a stipend from John Hancock or the city's Success Link Youth Employment Program. We have just released the application. I'll put it up in the chat window. If you know any Boston teens, we're especially interested in teens who are looking to enter this type of sort of hands-on skill-based career. So this is an introduction to that. And we're going to hire hopefully about 20 youth this summer.
And we were talking about too, if the timing works out with the inventory group that's in the field right now, the Planet Geo field, having some of those teens shadow them for a day, depending on how that works. There was a group or a company called Collaborative that also bid on this project with another team, and they had a arborist workforce development piece component, and they have reached out and said, hey, we didn't get the project, but we still want to do this work. So we're working on scheduling something with them to talk about what that was. And so yeah, that's all I have to share at this point.
Okay, so we'll go to Yvonne and then John, and then wrap up the question. So Yvonne, if you want to go.
Can I defer to John first? Because I already spoke. This is my
Okay.
second question. I'll go last, please. Thank you.
Sure, John.
Thanks. I was interested where in the planning process or this program you'd get into sort of operational details. So, a plan to plant a tree, you can identify a species, but the nurseries might not have the species available, which is why New York City worked with nurseries to, plan trees 10 years out from the time they were going to be planted. And then once you get a tree planted, that's the first step of a long process. It's got to be watered, for multiple years with some frequency. And there has to be, software to validate that whoever the watering crew is actually doing the watering. And then there are a lot of budgets and costs associated because the tree is just a small cost of keeping a street tree alive.
Yeah.
So I was interested to hear your comments about that and helping the city understand what the real costs are going to be and what the real, labor and, all of the efforts involved to getting a street tree in the ground and keeping it alive, right, which are significant.
Right. So there's a couple parts to that question. So the nursery part, one of the players, the groups of players that we want to make sure is represented at some level on the community advisory board could be the Nursery Growers Association or a representative from nurseries, so that they are aware of, hey, this is what's going on in the city. These are the challenges. Because a lot of times, I don't think I've worked in a city yet where they're kind of like, yeah, well, we want to plant all these things, but none of the nurseries have them. And the nurseries are growing for demand. And if the demand isn't there, it's a challenge. So that someone does need to be at the table in those discussions. And that's the first step for that. As far as operations go, what you're talking about, it's not just about planting trees, but the initial care, the ongoing care. That's exactly what Jenny and Larry are going to be working with the city operations staff to do. Absolutely. And ongoing maintenance and management. And do we have enough? What are the resources needed for that? We'll also benchmark what resources Boston has in place for tree care against other cities. There's a municipal survey municipal arborist program survey from other cities. I'm butchering the name there, but so we can benchmark, hey, you've got, you're spending $20 per street tree when, an average of other cities are spending $60. So clearly you're under-resourced for what you have to do. And there's a lot of different ways that cities fix that, and they're not all fixing it, but they need that information first, that you are woefully under-resourced or whatever it happens to be. But this is the first step to kind of laying all that out. And because it is a waste to plant a tree that no one's going to care for. And it just, that's so frustrating in so many levels. So I'm with you.
And I'll just add that we know that also people we have our maintenance crews, our tree division that will help keep the trees alive. But we know there's interest to just get your hands on the trees. Like people want to help water them, help the trees somehow. It's hard to just watch them sit there. You want to do something. So that's also a part of what we're looking at, is like, we'll look at how the city maintains trees, but how can we also support, like, what are the nitty-gritty challenges that have been happening in helping community organizations in watering trees. Like that's not that simple. So
Maggie, I'm so grateful that you brought that up, because right after this meeting, Bill and a couple of other folks are reflecting on the conversation we had with Commissioner Woods a couple of weeks ago about implementing an adopt a tree program, and we're almost there. All right, last comments from Yvonne, and then we'll just wrap things up. So Yvonne.
Yes, I am excited, as everybody is, about this initiative. I'm just echoing Patricia's concern that it's not soon enough. It's late already, and that we are pressed to see that the trees are protected. And I wanted to leave a question for Rachel, whether in any of the other cities that she's worked, there's been an entity like the BPDA in Boston that is a quasi private organization that gives land to developers, and we have no control. The city has no control. The Parks Department has no control over what they do with the trees in those parcels. And we're losing a lot of parcels that way, and trees. So I think there is an urgency, a tremendous urgency for an ordinance to control the loss of trees in private property. And we can't wait until June. I'm sorry, but it seems like we need that absolutely. It's urgent that you start working on that, because even before the urban forest plan comes out, why can't the Parks Department instill an ordinance stopping or controlling the, exerting some sort of control over the elimination of mature trees in private property, so that there's a hearing, at least a hearing of every tree that is taken down in Boston. We are losing so many, last week, I don't know, this month, like 20 trees in my neighborhood because of surveillance issues were taken down, mature trees in a housing project that needs the trees. So this is the urgency that I don't see in the vision that you're giving us. And I'm asking you to reconsider that, because this is really urgent. I know that you have the best intentions and it's going to be great, but this needs to be done right away. And we need your support. And the other thing I want to say is that in the advisory board, I very much hope that you include youth, because we need them. They are the stakeholders of the future of Boston, and they need to be at the table. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, the BPDA is a pretty unique, I don't know if it's one of the last remaining authorities in the United States, redevelopment authorities. So I would say we really agree on the urgency. And the thing about an ordinance is that it really does need to be a team effort. And if we push it through within a few months, there could be a lot of unintended consequences. For instance, are we restricting the ability for people to, let's say, haven't historically had the opportunity to build wealth and they need to renovate their house and remove a tree. Are we gonna unintentionally affect those people? What have you? There's a lot of things. So to make sure that it's something that is equitable, but also everyone's on board. There's the enforcement mechanisms. Like a lot of it is enforcement. So we might have a policy, but how do we have the staffing and budgeting to make sure that the ordinance is more than just the word? So it is hard to see the trees removed, and there are a lot of folks in the BPA ready to have these conversations and find a solution, because it's hard for them to see these trees lost as well. So yeah, I'm sorry for your loss and for all of our losses. Those trees really do matter.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I know there's a lot of interest in this ordinance. You've been discussing it. You've seen it in the questions, you see it in the passion throughout the city. And so I wanted to thank you both. We do have a couple of minutes left, and I'm going to end this little conversation. I'm reminded that this is a 20-year looking ahead plan. We're thinking long game here. And there is a saying, I don't know if it's true or not, but the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The best time for an urban forest plan was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So we are at a moment, I think, that's critical and really excited. I see, Pat, your hand is up. I do think that we have to first just go through a couple of other things in terms of just wrapping up our meeting today, and then we can keep this room open for additional questions, Pat, if that's okay. So Natalie,
yeah. So yeah, I just again want to thank Maggie and Rachel for coming and taking time out of their day to answer everyone's questions here. We really appreciate it. And we will keep everyone here up to date with information we get on how to get involved and how you all can be part of the community advisory board. We'll make sure to share that information as we get it, so you all will have that information when we do. And I encourage you to reach out to Maggie and Rachel with questions that you have that didn't get discussed today due to time. So we will continue just wrapping up the meeting. So David, if you want to talk about the seedlings in Arbor Week real quick.
Yeah, just real quick, if you're a community organization, you want to hand out seedlings for, oops, I put in the wrong link there, 1 minute. For Arbor Week, we have a form you can fill out, and Natalie's taking care of that. We also have a host of events coming up for Arbor Week. You can see a draft of it right now. I'm sorry it's not ready yet. On our website, you can keep on checking there, but we have a whole week of events. Some will be virtual, some will be in person. And we're giving away trees in Lower Roxbury. We will be having some discussions around faith and trees and the role of tradition and representation of trees, led by a rabbi, a reverend, and a Buddhist scholar, and some other events as well. So we welcome you to join. And then I think Elizabeth had something to share.
Yeah, and I see in the chat Lisa put information about a meeting for saving Crane Ledge Woods, and so wanted to make sure everyone saw that as well. And Elizabeth, if you want to go.
Yeah, thank you. At Speak for the Trees, we're working on creating some sort of self-guided tree walks that will be available publicly, both digital and print versions, hopefully near the beginning of the summer. And part of that process is we're trying to kind of crowdsource cool and unique trees around Boston. So I'm going to put the bit.ly link in the chat, and also the link to the form itself, which is what the bit.ly brings you to. So if you have any people that you can share this with, any newsletters or anything, that would be really, really great, because we're trying to get as many nominations as possible so we can kind of string them together into some unique tree walks that are sort of sourced by the community. So thank you.
Yeah, so I think we'll just end this part of the meeting real quick with just a quick buff update. If you saw that we have a new website, bostonforest.com. I just put it in the chat. And so I just want to remind everyone to look at it. You can provide feedback to me. I've already collected some great feedback so far. So over the next couple of weeks, I'll be implementing those as well, so that we can get a good website going and people that we can share so others can know more about this group, and we have a centralized place for resources. And so you'll see on the website, we also have a place for past meetings that we've recorded, and then also the our past meeting minutes, so that you don't have to go through your emails or deleted emails to try to find them. They'll be in one central place on the website. And so, yeah, I encourage you to give feedback, and then I'll also send the link to the form to have your organization added to Buff as well. There's nothing formalized about it. It's just, we want to make sure that organizations that are represented here can say that. So that's all I have.
I think Lisa had her hand up, and I assume it's about the crane ledge. Is that right, Lisa?
Yes,
Do you want to make a quick announcement about that?
sure. And here I am. Hi, everybody. Yeah, and thank you for the presentations. This is all so promising. So yes, we mentioned very briefly at the last BUF meeting that there was going to be an initial community meeting for the residents in the neighborhoods nearby, all around the woods, which is at the intersection of Hyde Park and Roslindale and Mattapan. And it's probably the largest wooded undeveloped land in Boston, and it's in environmental justice area. So the first community meeting was amazing. It was just to bring people together who would be impacted by it and see what their ideas were for that wood. There is a major development threat on the table right now that would clear cut 14 acres initially of this woods to put in hundreds of units of housing and parking. So we had 126 people attending, including elected officials. Every single resident who spoke or chatted was in favor for 100% conservation of the 24 acres. So I put in the chat, we're having a second community meeting on April 21st. It is open to a much wider audience. And since we had kind of a mandate from the first one showing how much local support there is for conservation, we really hope that you fellow tree lovers and conservation minded folks will learn about it, participate, share information. So again, I put it in the chat, and which also includes a contact email for that, but you can also contact me as well. Thank you.
I wanted to just respond to that, Lisa. I think you can probably get some support for your project from the Massachusetts Sierra Club. And I would encourage you to reach out to Jacob Stern and possibly Vernon Walker, who's in charge of faith groups. But Jacob Stern could help you get to the right person at Massachusetts Sierra Club.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's owned currently by a parish or a church, that land. Is that right, Lisa?
Right,
Yeah.
right. They've owned it for many decades. They're not planning on building on it. They want to do an outright sale of it. And what we need to do is find monies so that the church will get fair market value, and the woods and the spectacular ledge overlook will be saved.
So Reverend Vernon Walker is in charge of the faith group at Mass Sierra Club. I bet he could be helpful too. And I serve on that committee. I'd be glad to advocate for you.
Wonderful, wonderful, Sue.
Pat, I know you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, I just want to, first of all, echo the Cranes Ledge thing. It was an amazing meeting, and we've got a long way to go, but hopefully we'll get there. But the other thing I'm wondering if you're going to focus on is someone else talking? I'm hearing a voice. Like in some of the neighborhoods, I'm hearing more and more people who don't want to do yard maintenance are paving over their yards entirely, or putting paving stones. Front, back, every square inch of grass is covered. Trees are being cut down for no reason other than they don't want to rake leaves. Is there going to be a part of this plan that includes community education and or a city ordinance that does not allow cutting of trees on individual properties for no reason. I know it's expensive to prune trees, but I'm telling you, I'm seeing neighborhoods that have nice yards with trees turned into heat islands.
Mhm. Yeah, this is something that is not unique to you guys. It's a lot of cities are struggling with it, and it's what we've seen. And it's going to be one more thing that needs to come up at these workshops that we're going to work through. And I hear you with the timing is not fast enough, and I feel that too, because I see it in my own community, and I wish there was some magic fix I could give you. But yes, the tree protection on private land is a big deal, and politically very hard to pass, but should be talked about. And there's some cities that have done it, and so we will go over. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's tough.
Well, I don't want to hold people. So
can
Sarah,
I-
I know you had your hand up. Yep. But I did want to just give an opportunity for people to leave if they want.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the chance for a question during the presentation.
Yeah, your chair was empty. We called your name.
I got a phone call, I apologize, and I won't re-ask it now because it probably was covered. I'll watch the recording, but I wanted to let people know I put a link in the chat. If anyone's following the Shattuck Hospital relocation, oh, whoops, I touched something there. It's 13 acres. The state's having a hearing in Franklin Park, or former Franklin Park land. The state's having a hearing on Tuesday, and anyone who's been following it, this is a rare opportunity for public input in front of each other. The public meetings were kind of challenging that way. So if you're interested, hope to see you. I just sent the link for the registration. If you Google Shattuck campus at Morton Street, there's a lot more info, or feel free to contact me for the email notice. Thank you.
We'll make sure to include all of the links that are in the chat for all of these meetings in the meeting notes that we'll send out early next week.
Thank you.
David, I put up my hand virtually if I knew how.
Just to raise your voice and we hear you. Go ahead, Phil.
Just a bit of trivia you can wind up with that prompted by your story about we should have done this 20 years ago. JFK is supposed to have told the story of a French general in his on his estate talking to his gardener, and he said, when are we going to plant a tree there? And the gardener says, oh, it'll take 70 years to grow. There's no rush. And the general's response was, well, we better plant it this afternoon.
That's lovely. Thank you.
And with that, that is the perfect story to end on, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maggie and Rachel, for coming. We so look forward to this. The moment is now. We love the vision that you're pulling together. You know, you have a lot of interest in partnership here from everyone here at the table, so to speak. And may everyone enjoy this glorious spring day, and the trees. They're out and they're eager to join us on this mission. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie and Rachel. Bye, everyone.